What's up? It's Cape Sipes Custom Audio Reimagine. Welcome back to the shop. I have spent the last week or so just reorganizing, moving things around, getting the shop set up to be a little bit more efficient. So haven't really had anything in here to work on, but I do right now. We've got a 2011 Hyundai Sonata, and we're going fast and furious with this thing. So what we're gonna be doing is an underbody light kit. Really don't do a lot of these anymore. It's been a long time, mainly because A, I'm old and fat and I really don't like crawling underneath the cars. And B, it's just one of those things that kind of faded away, but it's now coming back because of the addressables and RGBs and just the way the lights can work with these cars. They're not neon, obviously. I personally love the look of neon over LEDs. Just had a better glow, but obviously you can do a lot more with LEDs. So what we're gonna be putting on this vehicle though is the Heiss Chasing LED Underglow Lighting Kit. That's what's going in here. And what you have here is all the bars have their own specific location that they have to go. You're not just screwing lights up. And the reason for that is it has these triggers. You may have done Harleys. I've done motorcycles that have this because it's a big safety feature. But what it is it'll wire into the turn signals, the stop light, and the reverse lights, and the lights will actually change with those features as they happen in the car. And what that means is when she hits her brakes, the whole bottom of the car will light up red. When she hits her turn signals, if she does her right turn signal, the lights on the right side of the car are gonna flash with the turn signal and they're gonna flash amber. And if she puts it in reverse, normally it lights up all white. Not really sure, I'm assuming that's what it's gonna do, but it lights up all white because it's also called a puddle light. So you can wire it like to the doors if you wanted. So when you open up the doors, the whole thing lights up white and shows, the ground in case there's a puddle there. And that's one of the things that's kind of new on all the systems you've got to know as a shop, you need to quote for that. I did not know this system had that, so I had to call the customer and see if she wanted those features hooked up because it does add another hour or two to the job because you've got to chase down those wires, you've got to hook them up. Now you don't have to hook them up. You can just use these lights with the remote control and the app that it comes with and just ride it out. You just won't have those cool little features or added benefits. She decided to go with it, so we're gonna be wiring them up, but that's why you have left 3, left 4, and then you have the right side. So you've gotta make sure you put the lights correct because if you flip them or do something weird, when she does her right turn signal, the left side of the car is gonna light up and then you're gonna feel really stupid. We got the instruction manual, we got the extra length, so these go between the lights. Here's the controller. So that's gonna wire up there. Then over here, we have our powers, our grounds, and our 12-volt triggers, which trigger those different options like I was just saying. And these are the metal rubber clamps that you're gonna use to mount underneath the vehicle. Then we also have the remote control. So there's a lot of underbody kits on the market, especially Amazon, things like that. I will not put the loose, rolled up lights underneath a car. I see it all the time. I hate those. They never stay. They're never gonna stick. So if you think you're just gonna stick them, it ain't gonna happen. They're gonna fall, and you see them hanging under people's cars, and they just look like crap. So I always want the rigid lights. Like rigid as in, these are bars. They're not loose, they're not gonna stick. So these, I like these because of that. There's also Race Sport had a set of lights back in the day that I loved. They were on aluminum and it was a solid aluminum channel. The lights were in the aluminum and then they were encased in like an epoxy so that made them waterproof. But it was just really nice because they're nice and rigid. And I use those when I do big trucks because they screw right up underneath the vehicle. They keep their shape. They're never gonna fall. Love those. These are in round plastic tubes. So that's why it comes with those clamps as the actual mounts because they're round, they're like cylinders. Should be fine, I don't see any issues with it. And now I'm gonna sit my big ass on this cold concrete for the next 4 or 5 hours and get these lights mounted up here. Let's get started. Okay, so you just got the cool visual of my big fat ass crawling around underneath the car. What I was doing is just getting like an idea of how I was gonna mount the lights. You don't just go wham bamming these things up in there. You've got to really pay attention to where you're gonna put them, where the light's gonna be reflecting down. And if I can look under a car and I can see the lights, that means the install sucked. I hate that. That's just horrible work. So whenever I see these underbody lights on cars and I see the individual LEDs under the car, that looks horrible. So I try to tuck them behind things or where it's going to be hidden, and all you're going to get is the glow. The fronts, not too bad. The sides look like they're going to work out pretty well because I've got body there to screw to. The rears are going to suck because the two bars are actually wider than the car because it has dual exhaust, and you obviously need to stay away from the exhaust. So I'm actually gonna have to build like a triangle bracket that's gonna hold them, and in the center they're actually gonna be passing over each other by about 3 inches because there's no other way to fit them in there. So that's the one that's gonna cause a problem. But I'll show you right now how I like to do them when I can, if possible, and that's the fronts that I'm doing right now. So on the front, the underskirts of this car, there's a lot of like damage, like they've been cut up and butchered and messed. I don't really know why, but this is the front section. I went ahead and pulled it off. I'm gonna mount the lights to this actual panel, and they'll fit pretty well perfect right across there, and then this one right across here, and then that is the front of the vehicle right there. Now, the reason I like to do this is because if they ever take the vehicle in to get serviced and they need to remove the panel, they can just undo the screws and just unscrew these connectors. And this is all out of the mechanic's way. If I mount this up to like the front lip or somehow try to mount it to the car to where it stays if they remove this panel for service, now the mechanic's gonna deal with these lights. He's gonna deal with the wires that are running up. And odds are they're probably gonna break them because they're not there to worry about your lights. They're trying to get a job done, and if they hit them with their arm or they hit it with a tool and they break them, it is what it is. They're not gonna fix it. So I try to make it so it's all removable. So this up here, especially because it's in the engine where they would be doing work, I'll mount it to this panel. This thing had a bunch of damage, so I'm gonna put a new bolt on here with a bigger washer to hold it up. It was missing a couple of the screws up here. So I've got to get this to mount up there and make it more rigid as well. But once that's all mounted, which this I'll do probably not with I may use the grommets that came, but another way you can do it's real easy. It's just drill 2 little holes and zip tie it down. And then make sure you put the zip ties between the LEDs. You don't want to go over the top of one because you'll create a blind spot. There'll be a little dead spot right there on the lighting. And we got the lights all mounted up on here. So as you can see, I did zip ties, which by the way, the zip ties that come with the kit, just throw these in the trash. These are just the biggest Chinese piece of junk. They just break. They're so brittle, you can literally just snap them in half. So do not even waste your time you using those for anything on the install. But these, drilled little holes. So I got zip ties on the end, one in the center, just in case I have one like pop on the end, the light doesn't fall. And we're coming through the front. This is what's feeding out to the controller. And then we went off to the side, and these are what's gonna go to the sides lights of the car. So now we need to get this mounted up in the car so we know where these are gonna land. So now I've got the controller mounted underneath here. It's all hooked up. Wires are all tied down right there. Then they're tied here, coming across. And then this is the power, the ground, and the trigger wires. So now it looks like I have 4 or 5, I have 6 wires here. So now before I go ahead and put this up, I'm gonna go cut some speed wire and extend these because these are gonna go up to, I believe, yeah, all these have to go in the car because this doesn't go to the battery. This has to go to ignition. So that line will go up and then into the cabin of the car where everything will be wired. So I'll do that now rather than doing it while I'm on my back. Really all this ends up being is cable management. So underbody light kits, it's all about cable management. Same thing as like an alarm or remote start. it doesn't matter how good of a job you did. If you don't do the cable management, it's gonna look sloppy, it's gonna fail eventually, you're gonna have wires hanging from somewhere and it's gonna just not last the test of time, especially here in Indiana with our winters that we have. So get the extension soldered on, then we can move on to installing it and doing the side pieces. And with that done, there is the extension line that's gonna go into the cabin. Lines have all been soldered. Then I did heat shrink over everything and we wrapped to here. So now we can go and mount this into the car. We'll see where these are gonna land for the sides. And we need to run these up into the engine compartment, pop the hood, and feed those along to pop them in through the firewall. So we're about 5 hours into this install here, and I've now got all the lights mounted underneath. And the next step is to run the wiring through the firewall, but I could actually drop the car down off of the jacks now. But I'm gonna show you why underbody lights should cost a certain amount of money. If somebody's willing to do them for a couple $100, you get what you pay for, and it's gonna be a horrible install. To do the way I have it installed takes every bit of all those hours I just said. So I'll show you how I do it and kind of get an idea of why it takes so much work. So starting in the front, there's our lights mounted to the panel. All of the wiring is completely clean. You can't see any of it. And then we have the wire right here that goes up into the actual wheel well area. And then the right way to do it is you pull this liner. So the wire is coming up behind there. That hole right there was already there, obviously, but the wire is coming up behind there, goes behind the liner, up and around and back down there. So the wire is completely tucked up inside this fender, so there's no chance of it getting caught up down there in any kind of suspension or falling down. So you gotta pull all the tabs, screws, anything holding the liner in, pull it back, run the wires past those fastening points, put the fasteners back in, and that will guarantee the wire can never fall. Then our wire comes in right there, and you should be able to see it maybe tucked up in there. And then it jumps across, and there's our light. The light is mounted behind that edge, so you won't be able to see it. Then the wiring tucks back up into the body and runs back into that well. The wire comes up, goes behind that liner, all the way around, comes out down at the bottom. And then a real big bitch was you have dual exhausts. So I had to go up around the other side of the heat shielding, come around to this side, and then I will do a little tab that's gonna mount the wire to that heat shield right there. Then it comes up here to the light, which you can see I have that little crossover. I had to build a bracket to cross the lights over because they are wider than the car. I can't let the end of this come any closer to the exhaust or it'll melt it from the heat. So they're crossing over with that bracket in the middle, and then I use stainless bolt there. I replaced all the plastic fasteners with stainless bolts and the rings that are holding the lights, so they don't move and bounce. When you're going down the road, if you have the lights on, the lights aren't sitting there bouncing along. It's mounted nice and rigid. So on both sides, I just need to tack a little fastener to the heat shield to hold the wire, and the hold wire on that side. And then we have our wire coming up here, braided, and that is what's gonna run up through the firewall. And on the other end is gonna be our leads that will wire up inside the cab of the car. And that's why it takes so much time, because I don't have a lift. You imagine I've been doing all of that basically on my back or on my knees, and I look like a construction worker and a mechanic all in one. So I'm just filthy. It's a disgusting, dirty job because nobody's wheel wells are clean. And when you pull the liner out, it's just caked with years and years of dirt and mud that's hidden back there that when you wash the car, you don't even get to. But that's all taken care of. So now I'm gonna go ahead and jack the vehicle up, get the jack stands out, get it back onto the ground. Then I can get in, run the wires to the firewall. I'm not gonna work on it when it's up on the jack stands like this. I don't wanna have a door open to be leaning in. Just no reason for it to be in the air, so why chance something horrible happening because of some weird failure over my big ass leaning into a car. But before dropping it down, I figured I should probably hook it up, make sure everything's good. And it is, everything looks great. So it's running through one of the thousands of patterns that this thing has. They're actually really bright. You can definitely tell that they're a quality light just by how much brightness I'm getting off of them. So let's go ahead and drop this on the ground and get this job buttoned up. Day 2 on the Hyundai Sonata underbody lights. And you may be like, what do you mean day 2, Cabe? You were just working on them and then you cut to this. And why are you on it for 2 days? It's underbody lights. It doesn't take 2 days to do these. Well, apparently it does. So last night, hooking up the turn signals and the tail light and the reverse light took about 4 hours of digging because all of the information online was incorrect on this car. This car has so many different variations of wire colors and locations, it's kind of insane. So after finally testing, getting everything figured out, found the turn signals, the left, the rights, everything I needed, got them all wired up, went to test everything, and the car does not start. Now the lights and everything work just fine, but the car doesn't start. I was here at about 10 o'clock last night, finally gave up, come back today. I have pulled out everything I hooked up. The car still does not start. It's a good time. So we figured it out. This plug right here. When I first took the underdash off, this metal brace goes all the way across. And I noticed that this harness was pushed up and was like wedging up against the metal bracket really hard. And I thought that was odd when I first saw it because I've done a lot of Hyundais and Kias for remote starts, and I've never seen that. Usually this wire is kind of turns this way and goes that, but it was coming out and was really pressing against the steel. Well, what's happened is these locks, see right here on the side, see these channels? And then you'll see the little nipple in the middle there. So you have to set those in there, and then when you crank this up, that channel pulls and locks the plug in place. The other side here, half of that little channel is broke. That little nipple is broke off. So this was not setting all the way in, and when you go to tighten it and you lock it, you would lock this in place like that. The plug still fell out. It wasn't pulling it and making full connection, which is why whoever had originally broke that had the wire all tight up against the metal because they were using the tension from the wire to push the plug all the way in. When you put these in, don't put them in like this, like where this is, even if this is off a little bit, it's not gonna line up. So you get it lined up, it's pretty simple, but you get it lined up and then you just kind of check, because see, like right here, I can tell it's not good, but I can get it to snap in. All good, right? We're all done. Nope. So that's the problem. Now, normally it isn't that big of a deal, but this one is broke. So now I have to repair that so that that plug, doesn't want to fall out. So you need to drop that all the way down, and then I can feel it grabbed. So I got it to lock, but I'm not liking how much movement I have here, so I'm gonna fix that. It's always the dumb little things. So now I can go back to hooking up everything that I unhooked because I spent hours last night identifying. And she's finally done. So something that should have been done yesterday is now done. The plug's been repaired, car's back together, everything's finished. Give you a little show of the lights. Now you can see how the turn signals work. So if you hit your turn signal, you're gonna go to right. You can see it turns to that. And then when you turn the turn signal off, it should go back to blue. And then if you hit the brakes, everything's red. And if you put it in reverse, they go white. Now I will say one thing I do not like about these lights, and I'm gonna have to call them tomorrow to address it. The remote control, it says it's an RF, radio frequency remote. It does not work. I put in new batteries. I can see the light lighting up. It will sporadically, every once in a while, do something. But there's something wrong with the remote. I don't know what it is, but there's nothing I can do about it on a Sunday. So I'm gonna have to get a hold of them, see if they can send out another remote or figure out, if there's something I'm missing. But I've read the instructions about 50 times. It just isn't locking in. It's supposed to lock its channel and kind of be locked into this system, and it just doesn't really want to work right. So this thing would have been finished last night, ready to go, if it was not for that damaged plug, but it's all taken care of now. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this ridiculous 2-day long installation on some damn underbody lights. Hopefully you can now see what it takes to do it properly, how much labor it is, very labor intensive to do it to where the wiring and everything is clean and you're not gonna worry about them hanging from a car wash or getting knocked down because you hit some rocks. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.